welcome to the February 9, 2021 Planning Commission meeting. Thank you for joining us in this remote meeting format we're using in response to Governor Brown's Stay Home, Save Lives order. This format enables the Planning Commission to meet, hear from the community, and take care of business while keeping its members, staff, and the public safe. Today, our meeting will begin with a public comment session, followed by a work session on the River Road Santa Clara Community Advisory Committee nominations and deliberations on the Clear and Objective Housing Code amendments. There are several housekeeping announcements and instructions related to the meeting format that I need to take care of first. Thank you for your patience while I work my way through them. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed on the agenda for this meeting. For those who join the meeting via computer, device, or phone, your microphone, webcam, and phone are automatically muted when you enter the meeting as an attendee. If you wish to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting and haven't done so already, please raise your virtual hand now to join the speakers queue in one of two ways. For those viewing the meeting on a computer, laptop, or other device, click once on the hand icon. For those listening to the meeting on a phone, press *9. When the public comment begins, our meeting moderator will announce the next two speakers at a time. When it is your turn, the moderator will announce your name and unmute your microphone. Public comment is limited to 10 minutes, so your time to speak will be based on the number of people signed up to speak. Finally, I want to thank everyone again for your patience, flexibility, and good humor as we work within this new virtual meeting format. As always, feel free to contact staff if there is testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different manner. With that, I will move on to item A on our agenda, which is public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the Planning Commission on any topics except for items scheduled for public hearing or public hearing items for which the record has already closed. The Planning Commission reserves 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting for public comment. Generally, the time limit for public comment is 3 minutes. However, the Planning Commission reserves the option to reduce the time allowed each speaker based on the number of people requesting to speak. As a reminder, your hand must be raised in the queue for public comment. When it's your turn and your microphone has been unmuted by staff, please state your name clearly before beginning your comments. Staff will let you know when your time is up. When your time has concluded, the moderator will mute your microphone and move on to the next speaker. So, do we have anyone who wishes to speak with us this evening?
There are no hands up.
No hands up. In that case, I will move us on to agenda item B. Agenda item B is a work session on the River Road Santa Clara Community Advisory Committee nominations approval. And we have Chelsea with us this evening. Chelsea Hartman, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm Chelsea Hartman. I'm a senior planner in the Eugene Planning Division, and I'm the project manager for the River Road Santa Clara Neighborhood Plan. I also want to acknowledge Elena Domingo, who's here, and she's also on the project team. And we have two folks in the attendees, Harry Sanger from River Road and Jerry Finnegan from Santa Clara. It doesn't look like Beth Giroux has joined us yet, but we'll also be introducing her I'll introduce her if she's not in attendance tonight. So tonight we will be asking for review and approval of the Community Advisory Committee nominees to fill current vacancies. We also plan to come back to you all on March 22nd to provide a more in-depth neighborhood planning update to kind of share the progress over the past year and next steps. I think the last time we did an update was your last in-person meeting right before COVID hit. So it'll be good to come back and give you an update. I also want to give kudos to two folks that aren't here. John Belcher and Kate Purley are our amazing Community Advisory Committee co-chairs that do a lot of great work, and they'll also be joining us next month on March 22nd. So I don't have a presentation, and hopefully this will be fairly short, and I'll allow hopefully Harry Singer and Jerry Finnegan can introduce themselves in a few minutes. Just a brief overview of what the Community Advisory Committee for the River Road Santa Clara Neighborhood Plan is about. It really is a key component to this community-based planning process. The Community Advisory Committee, I'm going to start calling them the CAC just because it's kind of a mouthful, acts as a representative body for the River Road and Santa Clara neighborhoods, and they must attempt to weigh varied community input and technical information as they craft a recommendation on the neighborhood plan. At the start of the neighborhood planning process in fall 2017, 13 CAC members were nominated by the River Road and Santa Clara community organizations and were approved by the Eugene Planning Commission. Recently, in September 2020, a CAC member from River Road, Michelle O'Leary, resigned from the CAC, citing personal reasons. And also the River Road and Santa Clara alternate positions that were originally established have also been vacant due to previous changes in the committee. To fill these vacancies, the River Road Community Organization Board nominated Harry Sanger as a CAC member and Beth Giroux as an alternate. And the Santa Clara Community Organization Board nominated Jerry Finnegan as an alternate for Santa Clara. I'd like to ask Harry Sanger and Jerry Finnegan to briefly introduce themselves if they're able. You can go first, Harry, if you want, and then Jerry can go if that works.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. My Zoom just reset, so hopefully it holds out on us here. But I just want to thank you all for the consideration of our addition to the River Road Santa Clara Neighborhood Plan Community Advisory Committee. I applied to volunteer to help shape the growth of our River Garden District, particularly in the areas of land use and transportation planning. I previously held a chair position in the Sumner Association of Neighbors in Portland, and more recently was a member of the Cottage Grove Planning Commission prior to relocating closer to my daughter's school in Eugene. I spent many of my formative years in Eugene and look forward to participating in the development of a positive community vision for my children to grow up in. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. Jerry Finnegan, I had been chair of the Santa Clara Community Organization for about 15 years before Kate took over. And I was the instigator of the project, actually, clear back in 1999, and formed a group called SCROLL, Santa Clara River Road Outreach and Learning Project, which went for about 4 years, and then went to SCRIPT, Santa Clara River Road Implementation Planning Team. So I was the chair of both of those. And when the CAC was formed, I thought I should step back and because I might have too much influence on the group. But now that things seem to be kind of wrapping up, and I would very much like to be at the end of this project. So I guess that's what I need to say.
And it doesn't look like Beth is here tonight. So Beth Giroux was nominated as an alternate for River Road. Beth owns a home and a business in the neighborhood and has been part of the River Road Community Organization since it began. She's also served on numerous committees, and hopefully she can come to a future meeting to work with you all. So the last thing I'll say, and that kind of concludes my bit, as the Planning Commission has the responsibility to review and approve the Community Advisory Committee nominees by taking formal action through a motion, and the proposed motion was included in the AIS.
Well, terrific. Thank you, Chelsea, and thank you for the individuals who are stepping forward to fill this very important role. I see a hand up on Commissioner Taylor. Would you like to make a motion?
Thank you. I just want to reiterate the appreciation for the volunteers and city staff. This has been a really fun and exciting project to watch. So I think it's great that you all have joined the group, because I think the end is going to be probably just as exciting. I'd like to move to approve the nominations of Harry Singer as a member, Beth Giroux and Jerry Finnegan as alternates to the River Road Santa Clara Neighborhood Plan Community Advisory Committee.
Second.
Commissioner Edwards has seconded that motion. Commissioner Borowski, you have been patiently waiting with your hand up.
Thank you. And thank you for you folks for stepping up and volunteering to this great community effort. One of the questions that I had, and this goes to staff and possibly to some of the CAC members, is you've referred to this as, we're getting to the end. And I'm wondering if there's an ongoing role for either this committee or some other committee to go through and look at the plan over time. Because what we've seen, at least I've seen in my tenure on the Planning Commission, is neighborhood plans get a lot of work and a lot of time and energy and thought putting them and getting them implemented. And then they go into action, but things on the ground change. And so, we are a lot of times challenged because we're working with neighborhood plans that are 20, 25 years old and have never been updated or even looked back on by some of the people who know the plans the best. And I'm wondering if there's a way to have check-ins possibly at the 2 or 3 year intervals with some of these people that help formulate these plans so that they are living documents, not just documents that are stagnant and not a moving target. Just a question for staff or the CAC.
Yeah, I can provide a little bit of background. So we're still in the action planning phase of the neighborhood plan, and we're talking about all of those things. I think a big component of this project is the neighborhood plan, which we hope to bring for the formal adoption process towards the end of this year. And we recognize that that's just the start of implementing the community vision. And there's also the action plan is going to be a supporting document for the neighborhood plan. And it has hundreds of actions in there that are different ideas of ways to implement the community vision over time. And those have been the exact conversations we've been having of how will we continue to work together from the community side and the city and the county, continuing to work together to implement those actions, knowing things will change over time. New projects will become more feasible, new resources might be available. So one idea that will go into more of an update at the March meeting is talking about this concept for plan implementation, to have an annual check-in between the community and staff to share information about what's going on, get input on timely projects that are coming up in the neighborhood, and just trying to continue that collaboration. And if Harry or Jerry, if you want to add anything, I know Jerry, you've been following along the process all along, and Harry, you've been joining us the past few months. So anything else you want to add?
It's a great point, and I'm not really sure it's built into the plan right now. I know Envision Eugene has that built into it, but it seems, first of all, once we get the plan in place, then it sets a process. And I'm old enough, so I was actually involved in the original River Road Santa Clara plan. It wasn't called that, it was called, anyway. What it did, even though I would have changed a lot of things, what it did was to establish a vision, a general vision. And as time goes forward on this plan, I think we do need some kind of an action group that evaluates that vision and makes sure that what we have in mind right now is really going to be what we get in the future.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. The reason that I think that this would be really advantageous, especially for this area, is the energy and the commitment that the community has put into the work in this area. And we wanted to use you guys as a template citywide because you've done it so well. And so that's why I'm thinking that if there's ways that we can continue that on so that the template is continued way on, I think that's what I would hope for as a best case scenario. I think you guys are best practices personified.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Borowski, for that interesting topic. And I think it's something that we could all agree would be wonderful as we go forward. I know we'll be seeing this group again on March 21st. So we've sort of made a suggestion here. I can speak at length and in great detail about continuously adoptive plans and how that works. But I don't think we're going to do that this evening. So with that, there's a motion on the floor, and I would like to call for the question. All those in favor, please raise your hands where I can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you, Commissioner Isaacson. I've got a 7-0 count there with Commissioner Isaacson chiming in. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you, staff and public members, Harry and Jerry. It was so wonderful for you to take time this evening and let us have a face to the process. As Commissioner Borowski said, we all enjoyed watching it evolve. And yes, Commissioner Taylor, would you like to add something before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that Chelsea had said the meeting's March 22nd. You had said March 21st. So I just wanted to clarify, just because the public is listening, I can write it on my calendar. Is it the 22nd or the 21st?
I believe it's the 22nd, which would be a Monday.
Thank you.
Clearly not meeting on the 21st then. It'll be a meeting of one, apparently. So 22nd, the meeting of this commission that will take up this plan will be March 22nd. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor, for that clarification. With that,
thank you all, and thank you for your service.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I'd like to move us on to agenda item. Pretty sure it's going to be agenda item C here, which is a work session, deliberations on clear and objective housing code amendments. And joining us, we have Janessa this evening, and I think we're getting close.
Indeed. So yes, for those listening at home, I'm Janessa Dragovich, the project manager for the Clear and Objective update. And indeed, we might be at our last planning commission meeting before moving on to city council, depending on the outcome of tonight. So I'm going to share my screen because I did put together kind of a special agenda for us to use tonight to go through the final items. So bear with me for a second. And okay, so what my plan was to circle back on the 4 follow-up items first that we have related to a couple of remaining little code changes, then to move on to discussion and a motion on the formal recommendation from the commission to move forward to council. Then the next plan or the next step would be to discuss the draft memo that I sent to you all in email over the weekend. Hopefully you've had a chance to review that. And if you have any suggested edits and stuff, we can try to do that tonight. Then assuming we get that to a point where you're comfortable, we've got a potential motion if you're ready to basically approve that memo. And finally, we have a final motion to authorize Chair Ramey to speak on behalf of the Planning Commission at the council public hearing on the code amendments. And then we kind of opened up the motion so that it would provide the flexibility in case it makes more sense to have him speak at a work session or any other related council meeting on Clarendon Objective. So to start with, we'll start right in with the first of the 4 follow-up items. And this was related to an earlier straw poll, I think it was straw poll 5, where you directed us to create a new figure for the transition standards, specifically the slope setback that can be kind of difficult for people to understand and visualize. And so at the very end of attachment A in the packet, we included a image of the figure. And this should be pretty much ready unless anybody caught anything and wants to bring that up now. And we could still make edits if there are typos or anything minor before we go to council. But this is the figure, and I'll keep it up for a second in case anybody has any questions about the understanding it or anything. So I'll turn it over to you, Commissioner Ramey, if you want to see if there's anybody who has questions.
Okay, I will now see if there's anyone that has questions about this figure. I don't see any. So I think, what do you need? Do you need a straw poll from us, or do you just move on the next slide?
I think for these 4 follow-up items, a straw polls would be great. Yeah, we'll just wrap it up.
It's adding this figure to the code amendment package.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Commissioner Isaacson, I think I got you. 6, 7.
Great. Okay. The next one is the probably the most substantial one, because this was the street connectivity exception that the straw poll last time we were in deliberations was for our staff to kind of go back and take another stab at seeing if we could come up with something to open that exception up to not just occupied buildings. And I went into detail in the AIS, so I won't redo that here unless it comes up in discussion. But basically, when I went back to multiple staff, we kind of still came up with a feeling like our recommendation would be to keep this particular exception, if it's a detached structure that's not occupied, to be reviewed and determined whether or not it qualifies through the discretionary adjustment review process. And I'm going to jump to the section in the code so you can see. So we did come back with the language as directed and put in an 800 square foot starting place in terms of trying to kind of use size as a way to get at the proxy for a value or something that would be more substantial of a building. However, staff's recommendation is to kind of go back to the last iteration. So not the first one, but the language that we had come back that was limiting the exception to occupied buildings. And I'll leave it there to open up for discussion on that before you straw poll.
Okay, I've got Commissioner Beeson.
Thanks. I went through this pretty close. I appreciate the AIS, Janessa. I thought everything in that was pretty clear, particularly when you got into detail about this. I'm wanting to support Janessa's recommendation to return to that original language, and I think at this point not include detached garage or a accessory building. So to be the original language that's there on the screen, I guess it's in the lighter blue. The more I got into it, I'm thinking it's important that we limit exceptions on these the community street design standards I went back, like I said, I looked at her IS pretty closely. I appreciated that. I also went back and looked at the purpose and intent language that's on the front end of the street connectivity standard. And all of that, I think, kind of reinforces or emphasizes the importance of kind of looking at overall community needs when you're making these sorts of decisions. So I guess I'm also finding myself more and more kind of circling back to HB 2001 and almost everything I do here. And I think this is also kind of increasingly important as we look at development that's kind of more efficient as we're increasing density and so on. So I guess what I propose is in that section, the dark blue language would just go away, go back to the original language, which she's got in the light blue, retain the rest of it. And I think it's important to, the subsection I down there that allows for the adjustment review, I think it's what really kind of makes it work. You know, in the event there's, I think first off, just one other thing, I'm thinking, I think staff would agree, this is a pretty rare occasion when we're confronted with something like this. So I think the idea of having the adjustment review and allowing for the case where there's a possible exception that might be warranted, you'd be able to review it. So that's my suggestion. Thanks.
Commissioner Borowski.
Thank you. And thank you for the work on this, Janessa, and probably Lauren, whoever else was helping to craft this. This was an issue that I brought up initially, and it was because, you know, I thought that a garage could be a fairly significant building. Like Commissioner Beeson said, I think that the times that this is going to raise its head is going to be not very many times. And so I can go along with his reading of the way to do this with the adjustment review. And I appreciate you guys taking the stab at it. I mean, I would have loved if we could have come up with a clear and objective way to define what we all feel we have in our heads as to what a garage is, but I understand that that's a difficult thing to write into words. And so I think I'm okay with moving forward with the language as proposed.
Mr. Taylor.
Thank you. I concur and agree with Commissioner Beeson and Commissioner Borowski. The only question I have for you, Janessa, thank you for your thoughtfulness, is adjustment review 37A. I just want to make sure, I know that there was thoughtfulness in these adjustment review, in the adjustment review language. And I just want to make sure and kind of hear what your feedback is in how staff views, because I want to make sure it's not a difficult interpretation when that first application comes in. And it's the subsection A. The applicant has submitted a report, okay, blah, blah, blah. And it has to demonstrate it is not technically or financially feasible to construct the street. So do you think that, I mean, does that feel, because that's an interesting situation. Do you look at it coupled with B, which I'm assuming you do. So if it's coupled with B, meaning B, one of the two needs to be met. So by explaining the existing development on lands abutting development site, let's say you have a very, a very expensive, nice, and I'm just going to use that as a more obvious example, detached garage that is compatible, consistent with this, you know, the existing house is, so you meet that check. And now you go to A, technically or financially feasible. Is just having the existence of that do you then, you're going to interpret it, and do you feel like the language gets to, it's not technically or financially feasible? So I just want to make sure I just would love to hear how that's been thought about from a legal standpoint and how that will be interpreted.
Okay. I'll have Lauren pop in terms of the legal standpoint. You know, again, this is a discretionary review. Whoops. Let me see. Is it echoing really bad for everybody?
That's good now.
Okay. So this, we didn't, you know, I don't have like a dollar sign in my mind on what that financially feasible would be. And that's partly why it's, you know, housed here in under the discretionary review, because I think that you know, the circumstances in the specific scenario are going to really vary depending on the proposal. But this gives us the flexibility to use some judgment on whether or not it's reasonable to take something down in order to make the street connection. So I think that there's a lot of questions in my mind that come up, which is, you know, what's the value, you know, approximate value of the structure that is in, you know, potentially in the way. And that's something that we can ask for in the narrative and the documentation and evidence that's provided as part of the adjustment review process to make that determination, and it's appealable. So if it doesn't quite meet our threshold, but there's still, you know, there is still room to kind of push that argument, and to some extent, I think that we would find out. I'm not familiar enough with existing exceptions to be able to give you a good idea of where that value range would fall, or and unfortunately, Gabe was not able to connect tonight, and so I have him kind of on text more than in the meeting. But so I'm not sure I can totally answer your question, Commissioner Taylor. Do you want to push a little deeper for me and help me?
No, I just want to make sure. I mean, I know you're super thoughtful and you've spent a lot of time. So I just want to make sure. I mean, to me, it makes sense in combination with B, that essentially the code is saying, okay, we're willing to consider these things if B, you meet one or the other. So obviously your technical and financial is viable if there's a structure in the way. It's just there's going to be a burden of proof that's required in order to justify what that technical and feasible is.
And the financial.
I mean, financial, that's what I meant. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Lauren, do you want to add anything?
No, I would just echo what you said, Janessa.
Okay. I'll put myself in the queue here. I was a little worried about this from the beginning. I understood the idea, you know, an expensive structure, you know, something to put whether a big shed or a big garage. But the problem became then, how do you define what that structure is? And so that was where I could see there was going to be sort of a logistical problem pursuing this. And that led to my vote against this to begin with. So I'm obviously happy going back to the original language. So any other comments, questions for staff? Anything else? Okay. No. So we can go to straw poll then. Show of hands for returning to the original language. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-0.
And just to clarify, that's the language from the last meeting that staff brought, correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Great. Okay, now I'm going to reshare. And sorry, I wish it didn't take me so long to click around here. Okay, so then the next item is related to the plan unit development open space language, and we're revising that just a little bit for clarity around the multiple family development standards. And so this was we changed this portion up here just a little bit to say must comply with either subparagraph A or B. So they're either going to be basically exempt from open space because they're within a half a mile of a park, or B, they provide the common open space with all the standards that give parameters around what that would look like. And then C becomes, instead of being A, B, or C, C becomes kind of a standalone carve out where we're saying that if it meets A or B and it's under the review of a planned unit development, then if it has multiple family development, then the compliance with one of these two will constitute compliance with the multiple family standards on open space, so that we're not double applying an open space requirement. And I do want to say before we vote on this to just remind the commission that this is one of those requirements that is likely to be triggered very infrequently because of this subsection A. The majority of applications are going to be within a half a mile of a public park or open space and qualify based on that.
Okay, are there questions, further discussion on this item? Well, I think it's very clear. Thank you again, Janessa, for sorting this all out, and everyone else who worked on this. Show of hands then, straw poll to move forward with the language as included in our agenda packet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Thank you.
Great. Okay, and the final one was the ad at the very end. So this was one of our, do you have anything else that we didn't do? And so we looked at the cover sheet requirement for tentative plan unit developments. And this is our proposal, is to keep this first sentence that basically does say that each of the specific plans that is done by a professional would need to have their certification, but it removes the entire chunk of this requirement that called for the special cover sheet that had signatures and statements from each one of the design professionals. That's can be, from the feedback that we heard both from testimony and Commissioner Taylor verified, it can be quite onerous to try to even put those together, and it's kind of a redundant requirement. So it fits well within the lens of removing barriers. And I did check, if you recall, Gabe had brought up a little bit of concern, like wanting to make sure that we weren't removing the requirement for the kind of point person to be assigned. And that's actually up above in A or B, subsection A or B. So that remains intact. The only thing that this change would do would be to remove the requirement for a cover sheet.
Okay.
And staff.
Questions or comments about this? Again, I think this is terrific. And although Commissioner Taylor, you brought it to us, maybe others did as well. It seems like this is something that we did ourselves. Well, we give all credit to Commissioner Taylor, but everything else was sort of a reaction to something. So it's nice to have one thing that we were proactive about. Thank you.
You should not give me credit. This is like, you could, it is so broadly, I will not take the credit. I think we all did it.
You were its champion. How about that? Okay. Further musings or ramblings? No? Okay, so hands up. Straw poll on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, thank you all.
Great. So with that, I think, would you like me to keep this up, Chair Ramey, so that you have the motion language in front of you, or would it be better if I stop sharing my screen and do you have the item up with the motions?
Let's see, there was a lot of questions there.
Sorry.
It's deep in the meeting. Well, so the next issue is to review the letter, and then we can just jump back and forth to the motion. I think the motion is what we need.
Before we move to the letter, this motion is to, this is it.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So can people see the motion? And
is it possible to make that a little bigger?
Absolutely. And
there we go.
That's great.
Perfect. And
I would like to make a motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Broski.
I move to recommend adoption of the clear and objective code amendments, attachment A to the AIS for the February 9th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting with the following changes. Delete subparagraph 9.6815 slash or dash 2H1 and replace it with alternate highlighted language provided for that subparagraph located on page 9 of attachment A.
Terrific.
A second.
Commissioner Taylor is seconding that motion. And now Commissioner Edwards, your hand is up.
My hand was up to second. Actually, my hand was up because I was wanting to do the motion. That's okay. I'll third it.
Third it. Terrific. Is there discussion on the motion? Okay, I think that's a wonderful amount of time for us to discuss something as important as this. So after how many meetings is it at this point? 7? Is this
6 this time around?
Is this our 6th or our 7th?
I believe it's our 6th, a public hearing, and this is our 5th. 6
meetings. So this is terrific work. And as we learned along the way, it's very complicated. And the input I thought we got early on was very helpful. And of course, the tireless work of Eugene and the rest of the staff is amazing. So with that, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor of this motion, please show me your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all of us. Very good.
Okay, so now we can move on. Sorry.
Now we move to the memo.
So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and then if you would like me to pull the memo up, I do have it in the Word document ready in case if there's any edits to be made.
Well, I think people are aware that this was drafted, and then Commissioners Beeson, Taylor, and myself had a chance to make some suggestions to it. There were at least one round back and forth. So there, a few of us have seen this already, and the rest of you had the weekend to look at it. So, I thought it was great. I've already mentioned, a very complicated subject, and it really deserves and needs this kind of extra explanation and clarity on its way to council. I think it's really great for the commission to be, come together and make this kind of statement to council about what we did, and. I'm also willing to take this forward in public forums as well. Any further discussion? Any questions? People nodding, people still reading furiously. Okay. With that, I think we're ready for a motion. Commissioner Taylor?
Well, I might give another commissioner, but can we pull that motion back up? I don't see it in I was looking for it in our AIS. I just don't remember seeing it, but if you can pull it back up, that's great.
Absolutely.
I like that you wrote it. It's good.
It is not in the AIS, so that is true. There we go. And we'll move to this one.
There we are. Item 7 on our agenda. Would someone like to read that as a motion? Commissioner Edwards, yes, you've been so patient.
I move to authorize the Planning Commission Chair to sign and cause to be delivered to the City Council the memorandum dated February 9th, 2021, which explains in more detail the Planning Commission's recommendation to adopt the clear and objective code amendments as amended to reflect the final recommendation and unanimous vote of the Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Mr. Fragola seconds, so pretty much involved everyone. That's very good. And I guess I'm pretty sure we can add unanimous to this letter. That's understood by everyone. Okay, good. Further discussion, Commissioner Taylor, yes.
Sorry, I thought we were voting.
Oh, you were voting. All right, an eager voter. All right, all those in favor of the motion, show of hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boy, someday I'm going to count to 8 and you're all going to be really worried. 0, thank you.
Just as long as you count to 8 at city council.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the, I have to count to 5 with city council though, John.
Okay, so the final one, I'm not sure that how much discussion you need, but the final motion is to make sure that it's okay for Chair Rainey, or we did put in or propose to put in, or in his absence, the vice chair, just in case, to appear and speak on behalf of the Planning Commission at council. And as I mentioned earlier, we also kind of created the motion so that it would allow for not just the public hearing, but we're anticipating to go 2 to 3 times to council. So depending on which day you feel makes the most sense to go speak to them.
Okay. I have Commissioner Fragla, your hand is up.
So I'll move to authorize the Planning Commission Chair to appear and speak on behalf of the Planning Commission at the City Council public hearing on the Clear and Objective Code amendments scheduled for March 8th, 2021, and any additional City Council meetings regarding the Clear and Objective Code amendments.
Thank you. Is there a second to it?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Isaacson, therefore we've completed this circle. Yes, Commissioner Taylor, did you want to?
Yeah, I love a friendly amendment. Are we willing to add or in his absence, the vice chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. The seconder is okay with that, I presume.
Yes.
Lauren Summers, was that your point as well? Okay. Terrific. It would have been mine too, but it's too fast for me. Okay, further discussion on this item? So let's vote on this. Hands up in favor of the motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are together.
Excellent.
With that, Janessa, how else can we help you this evening?
I think I'm going to miss you guys.
I doubt that.
Oh no, I've been pretty happy with Planning Commission, and you guys have done a lot of very deep, thoughtful work and had great questions, and so it's been very interesting and fulfilling to do this project. So Alyssa, do you have other items for the meeting? Because I think that wraps us up. Lauren, can you think of anything?
Yes, this would be for agenda item D, I think it is.
Okay. I can jump in with a couple of staff items and then let you go home early, or I guess you are home. Let you off your Zoom early. I sent out an email and I think you talked about it at your last meeting, but the recruitment for Planning Commission is open. And it closes March 12th. It's an online process, and that link is available on the city's website. And there's a lot of public outreach underway right now for middle housing. So I'd encourage you to kind of stay tuned on that. There was a survey that just went out there. They've spoken at City Club. There's been some Facebook Live events and more. So we'll make sure that you're kind of in the loop on those, but there's a lot going on in February, especially. Your next Planning Commission meeting is February 22nd. And that is, you're going to get an overview of the capital improvement program, the 6-year plan. And then you will have deliberations and recommendation for one of the Metro Plan amendments that you had a hearing on a couple of weeks ago. So it was the first one, the one that was Rodney's. And I can't remember which location that one was, but I'm going to guess you'll remember. And then just for those, I think I had let you know that there was a work session on commercial setbacks a couple of weeks ago that actually got bumped, and that will be on February 24th at the noon work session at council. I think I'll leave it at that.
Okay, very good. Anything else for the good of the order from commissioners or staff?
I just would like to thank Janessa again and all the work that she did on this. And I hope that the next project that she goes into is one that we get to work with her at the Planning Commission, because it's been a real honor.
Thank you.
All right then. Passing on our virtual applause and gratitude to staff and Janessa in particular. With that, I'm going to close the meeting and we'll see you all next time. Have a good evening.